He thought the divorce papers were the end of me. Asterisk, what he didn't know was that they were the beginning of his collapse. Asterisk, when Dominic Sterling signed his name, he smiled slow, satisfied like a man erasing a mistake from his life. The gold nib of his fountain pen scratched across the paper, loud and deliberate, as if he wanted the sound to hurt. Outside the glass walls of the 60th floor conference room, a blizzard tore through Manhattan, swallowing the skyline in white noise. Inside there was no sound at all, no sympathy, no warmth. Just finality. He never looked at me, he checked his watch instead. Platinum, heavy, obscene, worth more than my first car. Then he picked up his phone, thumbs moving fast. I didn't need to see the screen to know who he was texting. Bianca. Aspen, fireplaces, champagne, a future already planned without me. Asterisk. There, he said at last, sliding the papers across the polished mahogany table. Still no eye contact. It's done. You have 30 days to vacate the penthouse, Serena. I'm listing it next month. The market's too hot to let it sit empty. 7 years of marriage reduced to a real estate strategy. He stood straightened, his silk tie, and finally looked at me, not like a woman, not like a wife, but like something outdated. Something depreciated. Asterisk, try to find something smaller, he added, his voice soaked in fake concern. Maybe a studio near the museum. That kind of place fits your dusty little life better. Dusty, that was his favorite word for me. Asterisk, he reached for his cashmere coat, already mentally boarding his private jet. In his mind, this story was simple. He was the powerful executive freeing himself from an unambitious burden. The hero walking away from dead weight. Asterisk, he had no idea he was standing on a trapdoor I'd finished building long before he ever learned my favorite color. Asterisk, sit down, Mr. Sterling. Asterisk, the judge's voice cut through the room, not loud, not emotional, but immovable. The kind of voice that didn't ask for obedience because it expected it. Asterisk, Judge Keats had seen men like Dominic her entire career. Men who thought wealth made them untouchable. She had watched empires crumble under that exact delusion. Asterisk, Dominic paused. A slight frown creased his forehead. Annoyance, not fear. Asterisk, I have a flight to catch, Your Honor, he said. The divorce is signed. We're done here. Asterisk, the divorce is signed, Judge Keats corrected calmly, sliding a thick, cream-colored envelope onto the table. But the division of assets requires full disclosure of any significant financial changes. And as of 72 hours ago, your wife's financial status changed.
He laughed. Short, sharp, dismissive. What is it, Serena?
He said without looking at me. Your mother leave you a box of antiques? Some old brownstone in Brooklyn? Keep it. I don't want anything from your side of the family. I just want out. I didn't speak. I watched him dismiss my family the same way he dismissed waiters, assistants, and anyone he thought existed beneath him. I watched him erase history without realizing history was about to erase him. Asterisk. Judge Keats broke the red wax seal. The sound was sharp, violent, like bones snapping in a silent room. This is the testamentary trust execution for the estate of the late Victoria Vance, she read. As the sole surviving heir, full control of the Vance family trust has been transferred to Serena Vance. Dominic checked his phone again. Congratulations, he muttered. Enjoy the trust fund. Can I go now? Asterisk, the trust, the judge continued, her voice lowering, holds controlling interest in a diversified portfolio of global assets valued at approximately $180 billion. Time stalled. Dominic's thumb froze mid-scroll. Asterisk 180 billion, he whispered. The number didn't belong in his mouth. That's sovereign wealth. Asterisk, the holdings include the Vantage Group Highland Logistics, Judge Keats continued evenly, and a controlling majority share of Obsidian Capital Partners. The color drained from his face so fast it looked unreal. Obsidian Capital Partners wasn't just a company. Asterisk, it owned the development firm Dominic worked for. It signed his paychecks. It owned the building we were sitting in, this very room. This table, this view, Asterisk, that's impossible, he stammered. Obsidian is run by a blind trust. A proxy. A woman named V. Moore. Vance, I said. My first word. His head snapped toward me. Serena Vance, I continued calmly. V. Moore was just the username.
He stared at me like I was a stranger wearing my face. You hated V more, I said, leaning forward slightly.
You called her a dinosaur, a blind relic holding you back. I read your internal memos, Dominic. You insulted her for 2 years without ever realizing you were insulting me. His hands gripped the edge of the table. You were on the board? Asterisk, I was the board. Silence collapsed inward. You thought my silence was weakness, I said. But silence isn't submission. It's observation. While you talked, I watched. While you postured, I audited. You weren't leading. You were being evaluated. Asterisk, the room felt smaller. He felt smaller. Asterisk, Dominic had always believed that people who serve do so because they must. That those who move quietly lack power. He thought my work preserving history meant I lived in the past.
He called my career quaint, boring. Asterisk to him.
Architecture was about glass and height and shine. Appearances, asterisk, he built his career on risk, high risk. Deals that made him look brilliant when they worked and catastrophic when they didn't. And every time disaster narrowly missed him.
He called it luck. It was never luck. When he pushed the Hudson expansion too far.
I was the anonymous vote that forced an environmental audit, saving the company from a $1 billion lawsuit months later. When he tried to gut pensions to inflate dividends, I blocked it while he slept beside me. Asterisk, he thought he was the builder. He was the liability. I was the foundation. Asterisk, he missed my mother's funeral for a ribbon-cutting ceremony in New Jersey. And told me, it's just business. That's when I knew. Sitting in that frozen boardroom, watching his certainty collapse. I realized something else too. He thought he was the architect of our future. He had just handed the blueprints to demolition. The blizzard swallowed him when he walked out. Asterisk, Dominic didn't look back. Men like him never do. Apologies aren't part of their emotional vocabulary, only leverage, and the panic that comes when it disappears. The glass doors sealed behind him with a soft click, and for a moment the room just breathed, like a storm had passed through and left behind a dangerous calm. Asterisk. But I knew better. Wars like this don't end with signatures. They just changed battlefields. Asterisk 10 minutes later. I was sitting in the back of my town car, the city crawling past in slow motion, when my phone vibrated. Not a call. A notification. Market Watch, a financial gossip blog. Dominic read religiously. Trusted. Feared. Asterisk, the headline filled my screen with all the delicacy of a sledgehammer. Asterisk, unstable heiress threatens market confidence. Is Obsidian capital heading for chaos? I opened the article. Anonymous sources. Concerned insiders. A carefully crafted portrait of emotional instability. A scorned wife weaponizing corporate power to settle a personal vendetta. No name, but every detail pointed straight at Dominic Cast as the brilliant executive being purged by nepotism. A martyr sacrificed to hysteria. Then my phone buzzed again. A text. Dominic. You may own the building, Serena. But I own the narrative. Asterisk, the board hates instability. If the stock drops 10 points by morning, they'll force a no-confidence vote before you even get a keycard. Asterisk, settle. Give me the severance or I burn your mother's legacy to the ground. Asterisk, I stared at the screen. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel angry. Asterisk, I didn't feel afraid. I felt clarity. This was who he had always been. Not a leader, not a builder. A hostage taker.
He wasn't fighting for the company, he was holding it at gunpoint. He thought this was chess.
He thought threatening my past would make me fold. That was his mistake. You don't threaten a historian with history. We know how to dig. I didn't. Reply. I didn't call PR. I didn't deny the rumors. I opened my laptop. Asterisk Obsidian. Secure server. 2-factor authentication. Access granted. 1 email. Subject. Authorization for Level 5 forensic audit. Asterisk body. Isolate all servers. Mirror the vice. President of Development's hard drives. Grant external forensic access immediately. Send. He wanted a war of words. Asterisk, I was about to give him a war of data. Asterisk, when I walked into Obsidian Capital's headquarters the next morning. The building felt different. Not louder, quieter, like a library right before it catches fire. Asterisk conversation stopped as I crossed the marble lobby. Phones lowered, screens dimmed. The security guard someone Dominic had ignored for 5 years straightened his tie and held the elevator for me. Asterisk he nodded. He knew. Everyone knew. Asterisk the boring wife was now the one signing the checks. I didn't go to Dominic's office. I went to the executive suite, and I summoned Bianca. She arrived 5 minutes later, pale, clutching her handbag like a life raft, 26, brilliant at crisis management. And suddenly realizing she'd tied her career to the wrong sinking ship. Asterisk, she expected screaming, accusations, tears. I didn't even offer her a chair. I stood by the window, watching the city drown under fresh snow. Asterisk, I'm not interested. In your personal life, Bianca, I said without turning. Not the texts, not Aspen, not the lies. She froze. Those are emotional debts, I continued. I've written them off. I turned to face her. I'm interested in my company. Dominic is using corporate resources to run a smear campaign against the majority shareholder. That's fraud. If you helped, you're liable. If you followed orders, you're a witness. Her throat bobbed. He told me to release the article, she whispered.
He said if the board panicked, they'd force you out. He made me draft tomorrow's release.
He gave me the files. Asterisk, give them to. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a silver flash drive. This is everything, she said, voice shaking. Drafts, strategy emails, media lists. He told me to keep a backup, in case he got locked out. Asterisk, she thought. She was handing me gossip. She was handing me a nuclear device. You can go, I said. HR will contact you. She fled. I stared at the drive in my hand. Asterisk Dominic was arrogant, but worse, he was lazy. If he backed up his leverage, he didn't just back up the smear.
He backed up everything he was afraid to lose. Asterisk the forensic.
Audit didn't happen in a boardroom. Asterisk, it happened underground inside, a humming server room where data doesn't lie. It only waits. Asterisk Kieran, the forensic accountant I hired that morning, studied spreadsheets like an artist studies a canvas. Asterisk, the PR files are ugly, he said, but that's not the problem. Asterisk, what is? Asterisk, he typed a command. Data flooded the screen. Asterisk Sterling did a full user dump before he left. Entire documents folder. He opened a file. For 12 quarters, Dominic reported 98% occupancy in Midwest properties, Kieran said. That triggered his maximum performance bonuses.
He pointed to red figures. Actual revenue supports only.
82% occupancy. There's a 16% gap. I felt the cold settle. How much? Asterisk $4.8 million. Phantom leasing, I said. He nodded. He marked empty units as occupied. Then rated maintenance. Budgets to cover the shortfall. It wasn't incompetence. It was theft. Dominic thought he was negotiating alimony. He had crossed into criminal court. Asterisk print everything, I said. And pull the 2021 executive contract template. Asterisk Kieran frowned. Why? I smiled. There's a clause, I said softly. He wrote it himself. The Sterling clause. Any executive found falsifying data forfeits all severance and vested stock. Immediate termination. For cause, he didn't just sharpen the knife, he handed me the handle. Asterisk when Dominic stormed into the boardroom demanding his $6 million exit. He looked confident, victorious. Asterisk, he threw his briefcase onto the table my mother had once signed incorporation papers on. Asterisk, sign this,
he said, and the instability narrative disappears.
Asterisk, I didn't raise my voice. I pressed a button. The screen behind me lit up. Asterisk raw data. Red numbers. Undeniable truth. Asterisk sit down, Dominic. He didn't. Until I read the clause. Until he saw his own signature. Until his lawyer stepped away, he didn't scream.
He didn't argue. He collapsed. Security escorted him out with empty
Hands. No severance. No stock. No legacy. Later. As the storm cleared and the city burned gold beneath me, I framed the original blueprint of the tower my mother's work. Dominic built monuments to ego. I removed rot. Justice isn't revenge. It's
clarity. Asterisk and clarity.
lasts. The moment he walked out of that room,
He believed the damage was done. He believed the silence behind him meant victory.
that was the mistake. Asterisk Dominic Sterling had spent his entire life confusing exits with endings.
He thought the click of the glass doors closing behind him was the sound of freedom.
In reality, it was the seal on a pressure chamber. The storm outside didn't swallow him. It preserved him like something frozen just long enough to be examined. Under harsh light. Because power doesn't disappear when you leave a room. It waits to see who follows. Asterisk 10 minutes later. Sitting in the back of my town car as Manhattan stiffened under ice, my phone vibrated. Not a call, a notification. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, it demands it. A financial gossip site. One Dominic trusted more than people. Asterisk the headline didn't shout. It insinuated. Asterisk an unstable heiress. A fragile transition. Quiet panic dressed up as concern. Asterisk anonymous insiders. Carefully chosen adjectives. Emotional volatility. A scorned wife. Acting out, weaponizing inheritance to settle a personal score. Dominic wasn't named, but his shadow was everywhere. The story painted him as a brilliant executive pushed out by nepotism, a casualty of hysteria disguised as reform. Then came the text. Short, precise, confident. Asterisk you may own the building. Serena, but I own the narrative. If the stock drops 10 points by morning, the board forces a no-confidence vote. Asterisk settle now or I burn your mother's legacy to the ground. Asterisk I stared at the screen and felt nothing break inside me. No anger. No panic. No grief. Just recognition. Asterisk this wasn't retaliation. This was extortion. Dominic wasn't defending the company, he was holding it hostage. He didn't care if it survived. He cared that he walked away feeling taller than the wreckage. He believed reputation was a weapon sharper than truth. He believed history could be rewritten by whoever spoke loudest. Asterisk.
He had forgotten something fundamental. Asterisk.
You don't intimidate someone who studies the past for a living. Asterisk. We know where the bodies are buried. Asterisk and more importantly, we know how. To prove it. I didn't respond. I didn't leak a denial. Asterisk I didn't mobilize. PR. I opened my laptop. Secure server. Encrypted access. Administrative override. Asterisk 1. Email. Authorization for a full forensic audit. Mirror all servers. Asterisk isolate Dominic Sterling's user profile. Asterisk grant external. Accountant's immediate access. Send. He wanted a war of perception. I chose a war of evidence. The next morning, when I walked into Obsidian Capital's headquarters, the building felt like it was holding its breath. Not loud. Not chaotic, controlled, watchful, like a courtroom before the verdict is read. Asterisk conversations died as I crossed the lobby. Phones lowered. People straightened instinctively. The security guard Dominic had ignored for 5 years met my eyes, nodded. Once and held the elevator. No words were exchanged. None were needed. Asterisk I didn't go to Dominic's office. I went higher, and I summoned Bianca. Asterisk she arrived pale, composed only by muscle memory. A crisis manager trained to spin disasters, suddenly realizing she was standing inside one. She expected fury, accusations, emotional theater. I gave her none of it. I stood by the window, back turned, watching snow erase the city's edges. Asterisk, I'm not interested in your affair, I said calmly. Not the messages, not Aspen, not the lies. Her breath caught. Those are emotional debts, I continued. I don't collect those. I turned. I'm interested in corporate resources being used to manipulate markets. If you helped, you're culpable. If you followed instructions, you're a witness. Asterisk she understood immediately. Smart people always do eventually. Asterisk He told me to push the article, she said quietly. He said panic would force the board to act. He made me prepare tomorrow's release. He gave me everything. Asterisk, give it to me. Her hand shook as she passed over the flash drive. She thought she was trading compliance for survival. Asterisk, she didn't realize. She had just handed me the full archive of his fear. Asterisk, Dominic Sterling never believed in redundancy except when it came to leverage. If he backed it up, he backed up everything. Not just narratives. Not just threats. Mistakes. The audit didn't happen in a boardroom filled with speeches and opinions. It happened underground, where data hums and excuses die. Asterisk, numbers don't accuse. They don't persuade. They simply reveal. Asterisk, and what they revealed ended him. The server room didn't care who Dominic Sterling thought he was. Asterisk, it didn't recognize charm, titles, or reputations. It only responded to inputs and outputs, to numbers aligned or numbers that didn't. The air was cold, mechanical, stripped of illusion. Racks of machines hummed steadily, like a heartbeat that refused to lie. Asterisk, Kieran sat beside me, eyes fixed on the cascading data. He didn't speak at first. Men who deal in truth rarely rush it. Finally, he exhaled. It's not just aggressive accounting, he said. It's systematic. Asterisk, he'd pulled up a set of files Dominic never meant anyone else to see. 12 quarters. Midwest commercial properties. Reported occupancy at 98%, just enough to trigger maximum performance bonuses. But when Kieran overlaid the raw bank deposits, the truth surfaced like a bruise. 82%. A 16% gap. $4.8 million. He marked empty units as occupied, Kieran continued. Then rerouted maintenance. Funds to plug the hole. He paid himself with money meant to keep buildings safe. Asterisk, I felt no shock. Only confirmation. Asterisk, Dominic Sterling didn't bend rules. He hollowed them out. This isn't a divorce problem anymore, Kieran said carefully. This is federal exposure. Asterisk, yes, I replied. And it's also his own handwriting. Asterisk, I asked him to pull one last document. An executive employment amendment from 3 years earlier, one Dominic had personally insisted on after eliminating a rival who threatened his ascent. Asterisk, the clause was short, brutal, precise. Asterisk, any executive found knowingly falsifying financial data to influence compensation forfeits all severance, deferred compensation, and vested stock options. Termination is immediate and for cause. Asterisk, Dominic had called it efficiency. Asterisk, the legal team had named it after him, the Sterling Clause. By the time Dominic stormed into the boardroom later that day,
He still thought he was negotiating. Asterisk, he came.
Inflanked by his lawyer, posture rigid, confidence rehearsed. He didn't sit. He dropped his briefcase onto the mahogany table, the same table my mother had signed. Incorporation papers on decades earlier. Asterisk, let's make this quick, he said. $6 million in severance. Immediate vesting of my options. A non-disparagement clause. Sign it, and the instability narrative disappears.
He leaned forward. Refuse, and tomorrow I go to the Wall Street Journal. Sink or swim, Serena. That's what I always told you.
I didn't look at his lawyer. I didn't raise my voice. I pressed a button. The lights dimmed. The screen behind me came alive, not with opinions, not with arguments, but with numbers, raw, red, indisputable. Asterisk. Sit down, Dominic, I said. He frowned, squinting. What is this? Asterisk, your bonuses, I replied. Your theft.
Column.
See reported occupancy. Column actual revenue.
His lawyer's folder closed quietly. That's a clerical error, Dominic said too fast.
Creative accounting. Everyone does it. Asterisk, no, I said, sliding a single page across the table. Not everyone writes their own execution order.
He recognized the document immediately. His signature stared back at him. Asterisk, I read the clause.
Aloud, word by word, he stopped breathing. Asterisk, the room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. Power doesn't announce itself when it wins. It simply removes resistance. Asterisk, this clause, I said softly, is named after you. You built it. You enforced You weaponized it. I met his eyes. And today it applies to you. His lawyer stepped back. Dominic didn't argue. He couldn't. The structure had failed. Total collapse. No leverage left to pull. The man who once terrorized an entire floor of executives suddenly looked small, not humiliated. Emptied. The 6 million was gone. The stock was gone. The future he felt entitled to gone. Security. I said calmly. They escorted him out without resistance. No personal items, no speeches. Just a quiet removal, like debris cleared after a collapse. When the doors closed, no one spoke. I stood and walked to the window. The blizzard had ended. New York stretched below, lit, alive, relentless. A city built by people who understood one thing Dominic never did. Foundations matter. I took the original blueprint of the tower from my bag, the one he'd once used as a coaster, and placed it in a frame on the desk. Revenge burns everything it touches. Justice clarifies. I didn't destroy Dominic Sterling. I applied his rules. I removed rot so the structure could stand. I wasn't a wife anymore. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't observing from the shadows. I was the architect. And legacies aren't announced. They're built.